Part 1. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. A coincidence of rebirth. It hurts, as if all the bones in the body are broken. Isn't he dead? Why does it still hurt so much? Xianxia opened her eyes with great effort, and saw a somewhat dim space with towering rocks on both sides. There was a bright light shining down from above, and she could hear the sound of water flowing next to her ears. I feel that I am lying on a huge stone. Where is this? She wanted to get up and take a look, but when she moved, the pain in her body became stronger and she couldn't move at all. She was a little confused. Even though she was born a sick child, fortunately, her family was from a family of ancient medicine, so they had the strength to let her rely on expensive medicinal materials to sustain her life. Although she only lived to be 13, her body was only weak, so why was her death so painful? Woolen cloth? At this moment, a memory that did not belong to her appeared in her mind. She was stunned. After her death, she did not take the road to or drink mangpo soup. She was actually directly reincarnated into a cultivator where the strong were respected. The body of a girl in the world who had just been blatantly killed by many girls. The original owner is also named Xianxia. She is also 13 years old, and she is the only daughter of the second son of the old general of the Tianshan Empire's Protector General's mansion, Yanqianjai, on the Tiansha continent. Xianxia's life before she was 10 years old was still very happy, but after her parents had an accident when she was 10 years old, her life could no longer be described as miserable. This time, the Qingyun sect, the largest sect in the mainland, came to the Tianshan Empire to select disciples. Only 10 people were selected. All the boys and girls under the age of 15 from the major families in the imperial city who had awakened their human souls entered the Tianshan Empire's royal training ground for testing. The last ones were left. 10 people are the ones selected. Cultivation in this world is divided into 9 levels: Shi, Yuan, Ling, King, Zun, Zone, Emperor, Saint, and Shen. Each level has 9 sub-levels. The scholar level is the entry-level level, but the real start of cultivation is above the UN level. Just because in order to break through the UN level, one must first condense the Yuanying, which is also the foundation of monks' cultivation, and is more important than spiritual roots. Since the original owner awakened the human soul at birth, he has only cultivated to the 9th level of the night level in the past 13 years. He has never condensed the nascent soul and cannot break through the UN level. Most of his peers have cultivated above the UN level, so he is laughed at as a waste. With her cultivation level, it was impossible for her to be selected. She didn't want to come, but the people in the Yu family wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of her as a loser, so they were forced to come. And the current situation of the original owner is the result of being calculated in front of everyone. Xianxia sighed. At least the original owner had the healthy body she dreamed of in her previous life, although her current physical condition was not very good. The first priority now is to deal with physical problems, otherwise, you will have to die again. Xianxia was attacked from above and fell down. Although she reacted quickly and used her spiritual power to support her when she finally landed, her spiritual power at the rank of a soldier was not of much use and she fell miserably. She was born weak in her previous life and could not do anything. However, her family came from an ancient martial arts family and specialized in medicine. She began to study medicine since she was a child and was known as a medical genius. So she was very aware of her body at this time. The tendons and bones were all broken, and she was just a puddle of flesh. The original owner should have died from excessive blood loss. Even in Yu's house, there is no cure for such an injury, but it's not difficult here. A third-grade recovery pill can do it. She has it, and it's in the storage ring. Unfortunately, she can't move it, even if she can take it with her mind. When I came out, I couldn't open my mouth and couldn't eat. What to do? Since she can't move, the pills can't be taken into her mouth, and no one will come to save her, she can only save herself. The only way to save herself is the exercises she practices. The original master practiced the ancient skill Panguhuaikai. There were 3 levels in her life. She had been holding back on the first level of condensing the nascent soul for 10 years, so her cultivation level had not been advanced. She never understood why the nascent soul that could be easily condensed by others was so difficult for her to reach the sky. Yanxiangluo clearly sensed the depressed and aggrieved mood of the original owner for 10 years. Putting aside this emotion, I closed my eyes and wanted to try the original owner's previous practice method to see if I could practice. I learned from the memory of the original owner that as long as you can practice, physical injuries can be slowly repaired. As long as she could move, she could take out the elixir and take it. Although the body fell badly, fortunately, the danshan was intact, and 5 weak saplings grew inside. These are the spiritual roots. The original owner was tested and found to have 5 spiritual roots when he was 3 years old. In fact, the fewer spiritual roots the better. Human energy is limited and it is impossible to cultivate all spiritual roots well. Therefore, the achievement of a single spiritual root will not be low unless there are special circumstances. And the 5 spirit roots are equivalent to waste materials. Yuxiangluo is not discouraged. After all, she can still practice, right? She can't work hard to gather her spiritual roots. With a thought, she began to absorb spiritual energy into her body. She originally thought it would be difficult, but she didn't expect that she could do it in just one thought. She was familiar with everything about the original owner, as if she had experienced it herself. There was no time to think too much. After the spiritual energy entered her body, it went straight to her danshan. It was like a spring rain after a long drought. The danshan began to absorb the spiritual energy crazily, and the spiritual energy gathered wherever she was. This feeling is so amazing. The danshan was quickly filled with spiritual energy, and a golden light group appeared in the danshan, gradually forming the shape of a baby. Yanxiangluo was extremely pleasantly surprised. Nascent soul is about to be condensed. As long as the nascent soul is condensed, she will have passed the first stage of Pangu flower blooming and will start the real path of cultivation. Although she was pleasantly surprised, she still calmly absorbed the spiritual energy. She could not be interrupted at this time. Once interrupted, her cultivation path would be completely interrupted. Yuanying has only one chance to be condensed in his life. The golden light group gradually became clearer from the shape of a baby, and more spiritual energy was needed. Not only the place where she was, but also the spiritual energy from the entire royal training place came to her. At this time, there were not many people left in the land of training, about 30 people, but in the end only 10 people were left, so the competition was still fierce. A group of boys and girls, although they discovered that the aura was different, they didn't pay much attention to it. They all thought that whoever happened to have the opportunity to advance was about to advance. Their first priority now is to make themselves the ones who can stay. At this time, several of them formed a small group and jointly forced the lone people out of the royal training ground. The number of people left behind is slowly decreasing. Yanxiangluo was very lucky at this time that the original owner had fallen below. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to successfully condense the nascent soul, and those who wanted her to die would not have allowed her to condense the nascent soul. Time passed little by little, and Yuanying could clearly see that the facial features were exactly the same as those of Yanxiangluo. Only then did she realize that the original owner actually looked the same as her. Having the same name, the same surname, the same age, and still looking exactly the same, is there such a coincidence in the world? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 Life After Death. Just after the nascent soul was completely formed, a living miniature version of himself sat cross-legged in the dantian. The golden light turned into clothes and was worn on the nascent soul. The golden little person was extremely beautiful. At this moment, a golden flower with 5 petals appeared on the top of nascent soul's head in dantian, spinning like a flower umbrella on nascent soul's head. The flower looked familiar. Her eyes lit up. Isn't this what she wore around her neck, the jade pendant carrying the pangu flower blooming technique? It turns out that she has truly started practicing Pangu Huikai's ancient skills at this time. Then the flowers shed countless warm rays, centering on the dantian, they turned into countless warm currents and spread around the body. Wherever they went, the broken bones and broken tendons were quickly rebuilt, and the tendons were wider than before. After several times, the bones and meridians were still purified without a trace of impurities, and the spiritual power transformed by the spiritual energy flowed unimpeded in the meridians. The 5 small sapling-like spiritual roots in the dantian were intertwined and shrouded in golden light. They slowly condensed into one spiritual root and grew into a thick sapling, growing next to nascent soul. Xianxia was extremely surprised. Can 5 spiritual roots be condensed into one? She carefully checked it and realized that although the spiritual roots were condensed into one, they still had the 5 attributes of the 5 spiritual roots. It was simply amazing. Although she didn't know what was going on, Xianxia understood one thing. The original owner had been unsuccessful in condensing the yuanying because the muscles and veins were not wide enough and the spiritual roots were too messy. After all, the Pangu flower blooming technique is an ancient technique. Such an excellent technique naturally requires a body with strong meridians and spiritual roots to truly inherit it. Otherwise, you will be like the original owner. Although you have obtained the skills, you will be like a waste. This time she broke her tendons and bones, leaving her tendons to die and then regenerating them. By a strange combination of circumstances, she rebuilt her tendons and directly expanded her tendons to the point where she could practice cultivation. Even the bones are several times stronger than before, and the spiritual roots are condensed into one. They look much stronger than the 5 wilted saplings before, which meets the requirements for inheriting the technique. Looking at it this way, I am taking advantage of myself. When her body was completely enveloped in the warmth, the pain in her body completely disappeared, followed by a sense of comfort that she had never experienced before. Is this what it feels like to have a healthy body? Before he could be happy, his long-suppressed cultivation began to advance due to the condensation of yuanying. Xianxia quickly got up and sat cross-legged, continuing to absorb spiritual energy and began to advance. The little umbrella-like flower was still spinning. Xianxia found that it seemed that she was absorbing spiritual energy faster and easier than before. After being filtered by the flowers, the spiritual energy was directly converted into spiritual power, omitting a step to purify the spiritual energy. It was better than the original owner before. Cultivation is simple and fast. Is this the benefit of her rebirth? Although the original owner has not broken through the UN level in 10 years, he has never slacked off for a day. He has been practicing very hard, and his spiritual energy has accumulated and compressed repeatedly. As soon as he advanced, he can see the benefits of diligence. After successfully breaking through the UN level, the promotion did not stop. It only stopped after advancing to the first, second, and third levels of the UN level. The flower in the dantian also stopped rotating, shrunk into a small one, and landed on the right side of nascent soul's double bun, like a head flower. The golden dress is paired with a golden flower. No matter how you look at it, the little baby looks very rich. Xianxia felt the abundant spiritual power in her body. From the inside to the outside, her body felt more comfortable than she had ever experienced in the 13 years she had lived in her previous life. Her beautiful eyes suddenly opened and shone brightly. This kind of life is quite good. Although her appearance was a bit miserable, the result was still good. She could finally have a healthy body and live a good life. Moreover, This world is still a magical world, a world that she once longed for. In her previous life, apart from studying medicine, her only hobby, and the only hobby she could practice, was reading novels. Fantasy novels are her favorite genre, and the kind of freedom to pursue a powerful life is beyond her reach. Now, she is here. Maybe God took pity on her because she lived a miserable life in her last life, so she was given such an opportunity. Isn't her experience just like the treatment of those heroines in fantasy novels who are a blessing in disguise? Haha, God, I forgive you for the wrong you did to me in your last life. Xianxia's eyes fell on her right hand. From the moment she could sense it, she knew that she was holding a hard object in her right hand. This was a video stone, given to her by the original owner's parents. Before falling from above, the original owner did not expect that he would be so miserable. He wanted to record the scene with a video stone and use it as evidence after he got out. Now this audio and video stone is very convenient for me. The slender hands were covered with blood and dirt, and a black stone was held in their hands. Is such an ordinary stone the audio-visual stone? With a thought, Xianxia put the Yingyan stone into her storage ring. When she went out, holding the Yingyan stone was of great use. She stood up, stretched her arms and danced her legs, doing all the actions she wanted to do but couldn't do in the previous life, and laughed excitedly. It is good to have a healthy body. After the excitement, she considered her current situation. She did not forget that she was still in the royal training ground. In fact, everyone who comes in has a life-saving card in their hand. In moments of life crisis, they can crush it and leave the secret realm. Of course, they also lose the opportunity to go to Xuanhuan sect. Her life-saving sign was snatched away by the group of girls who besieged her and attacked her when she fell off the cliff. They were worried that she would crush the life-saving sign and get out, but they did not want to leave her a way to survive. I looked around and saw that the space under the cliff was not very large. It was clear at a glance that there was no way out. Looking up at the place where there was almost a ray of light in the sky, she would never be able to get out with her current strength unless she had wings. Looking down at the direction of the water flow, I saw a small stream that could be crossed in one step. Walking along the stream, the end and exit were under rocks, and there was no way out. Back on the huge rock where she fell, a dried humanoid blood-stain pattern on the rock reminded her of what happened to the original owner. Looking down at himself, he saw that his clothes were covered with dried blood. He looked as embarrassed as he wanted, and as miserable as he wanted. After losing so much blood, my body recovered, but I didn't lose any blood. Sure enough, the ancient skills are all about leaving, and the fantasy world is magical enough. However, it would be miserable for her to go out like this without being prepared to take care of herself. Since she couldn't get out, she didn't think about how to get out. Anyway, the last 10 people left would be teleported out. Those people never expected that they would be a blessing in disguise and would be able to get the qualification to go to Xuanhuan sect without any effort. Who has the ability to hunt her down here? The time now cannot be wasted. In her previous life, she didn't know how long she could live, so she cherished every minute and every second she lived. Although she has a healthy body in this life, she still won't waste time. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Can You Read Minds? Although there are 5 spiritual roots, the original owner's normal practice is mainly based on the slightly better fire spiritual roots and water spiritual roots, supplemented by the other 4 spiritual roots. However, because the spiritual roots are too many and messy, the effect of the practice is not good. I don't know how effective the cultivation will be after the spiritual roots are merged into one. How to cultivate the power of the 5 elements. Xianxia sat cross-legged, holding flower fingers with both hands, absorbing spiritual energy and began to practice. As soon as she started practicing, the golden flower on Yuanying's head levitated and grew larger. The spiritual energy she absorbed entered the danshan and was directly absorbed by the flower. It is absorbed and converted into spiritual power and stored. If this cycle continues, more and more spiritual power will be stored. She thought about the power of fire and twisted her fingers, and a small fireball the size of a candle flicked out and landed on the rock, burning the rock a little black. After another twist, fine water droplets sprinkled around her. Xianxia was extremely surprised. The original owner mainly cultivated the fire spirit root and water spirit root, which were slightly better qualified among the 5 spiritual roots. However, she could only practice them one by one. Now she can actually practice them together. Does this mean that other spiritual roots of metal, wood, and earth can also be cultivated together? With a thought, a cluster of life breath wrapped around the fingertips. With a slight flick, the breath of life fell on a weed under the stone. Although the vitality was not much, the weed instantly became more energetic and seemed to grow a little bit of height. This was something the original owner couldn't do before. Does this mean that her spiritual roots are now a whole? As long as she practices, her spiritual roots will be strengthened, and the power of all departments will increase equally. In other words, when that department becomes enlightened, she can concentrate on cultivating that department. When this department improves, her spiritual roots will improve, and the other 4 series of powers will also improve. This is simply a blessing in disguise. As long as she works hard enough, all 5 elements will be equally powerful. Look at her 5 elements of power being equally powerful in the future. Who will say that the 5 spiritual roots are useless? With a flick of her finger, a golden attack force rushed towards the rock beside her. With a bang, the rock was smashed into a 1-meter deep hole by her power. Then a burst of earth element power was swung out, and a small earth shield formed in front of her. Although the defensive power was not strong, it was because her current cultivation level was still too low. Xianxia took the trouble to use the 5 series of powers repeatedly until she could convert them skillfully, so that she could be handy in battle. It was not until she felt that the spiritual power in her body was consumed too much that she stopped. Sure enough, it was an ancient skill. After passing the first level, the benefits became apparent. However, she also understood that if she wanted to use the power of the 5 elements, she needed strong spiritual support, which meant that she needed to spend more money than others. It takes more time to practice hard. She was not too happy. There were still 2 levels waiting for her to pass in the Pangu flower blooming technique. The next one was when she would break through to the king level. I won't be able to reach the king level in a short period of time, so let's not think about it. This is the royal training ground. The spiritual energy is richer than outside. Since you can't get out, don't waste time. Sit cross-legged and start absorbing the spiritual energy. Practice. Xianxia couldn't see it herself. After she started practicing, there was a whirlpool of spiritual energy above her head, absorbing the spiritual energy in the secret realm and flowing towards her. Although it was not as obvious as when she was condensing the Yuanying before, people in the secret realm could also see it. I can clearly feel the spiritual energy flowing in one direction. 3 days of this practice have passed. There are 10 people in the secret realm. You look at me and I look at you. Obviously there are only 10 of them left. Why is the selection not over yet? One of them said, there must be someone hiding somewhere we can't find. What should we do? Another person asked anxiously. They have searched everywhere they can, but they haven't found the 11th person. They don't know how many people were hidden. The 10 people immediately retreated and looked at the others warily. Needless to say, they also knew that since they could not find the hidden person, they could only clear out one of the 10 people. The 10 of us are usually friends, and our families all have interests in each other, so don't use any means. Let's go according to our cultivation and strength. How about the lowest one voluntarily abstaining from voting, someone suggested. Others immediately agreed. Only the person with the lowest cultivation level was speechless. At this point, he was unwilling to give up. But looking at the eyes of the 9 people looking at him, he knew that there was still some kindness in giving up voluntarily. If they really took action, they might not let him get out alive. After all, no one wanted to offend the family behind him. Only dead people keep secrets. A person dies inside, and after he comes out, who knows who killed him? This is the so-called friend. In the face of interests, there is no friendship at all. Although he did not get the token this time, it also taught him a lesson and let him know how to treat these so-called friends in the future. If he can't get the entry token, he can still go to Xuanhuan sect to participate in the selection. He will still have a chance to enter Xuanhuan sect, but it will be more difficult. There is no need to lose his life because of it. This is the only way. Congratulations. After thinking about it, the young man said congratulations and immediately crushed the life-saving card in his hand. He was worried that if it was too late, the other 9 people would change their minds. Sure enough, before leaving, he saw expressions of regret on the faces of the other 9 people that he did not resist. One more person is missing, and the remaining 9 people pray in their hearts that only one person is hidden, otherwise, they will only be able to clear out one more person. Just when they were worried, the figures of the 9 people disappeared. Xianxia, who was indulging in cultivation, sensed something was wrong with her breath, so she quickly quit the practice and stood up. A white light flashed in front of her eyes. When she opened her eyes, she saw a large group of people in front of her, and she was standing with 9 other boys and girls. Opposite of people. Are you leaving the royal training ground? All 9 people looked at her in unison. Who is this person? He made it so miserable. Where did he hide it? I can't even tell what he looks like. Xianxia was a little confused. The young man next to her clearly didn't open his mouth. How could she hear him speak? Damn it, it doesn't look like much, and it cost them one of their own. His mouth still didn't move, but Xianxia could still hear him speaking, and her mind lit up. Is this mind reading? She then looked at the other 9 people and saw that the girl who had forced the original owner to death was among the 10 of them. The girl's eyes met Xianxia's and her mouth didn't move, but she also heard her speaking. Why is it her? That good-for-nothing Xianxia is not dead? No wonder they can't find anyone no matter how hard they look. There is no way up from the cliff. They don't dare to go down. If they go down, they won't be able to come up. Xiang, it's good luck, don't fall into my hands in the future, and you must not let her marry the regent. She could indeed hear the other person's inner thoughts. Xianxia felt a little bit carried away. Is this the golden finger of rebirth? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. I want to break off the engagement. Xianxia calmly withdrew her gaze. At this time, the people opposite were looking at the 10 of them, with various expressions. They were proud because this was the married woman among the 10 of them, and envious and hateful because the children at home were not among the 10 of them. Compared to the other 9 people, Xianxia was in an extremely embarrassed state. There were blood stains all over her body, and the original color of her clothes could no longer be seen. A small face was also covered in blood. She ignored the looks of the 9 people looking at her, and stopped listening to their voices. They were just cursing her for not dying inside. Although she was not the original owner and could not kill those people to avenge the original owner, she was not unable to do anything. A middle-aged man wearing a snow-white brocade robe fell from the air. With a move of his hand, 10 jade tokens appeared in front of the 10 of them. As soon as he stretched out his hand, the jade tokens fell into their hands. This is the Qingyuan sect token. You can take the token and register at the Qingyuan sect within 1 month after testing your spiritual root talent. We will arrange for you to practice there specifically. Remember, arrive on time. If you are late, you will give up. As soon as the man finished speaking, the man rose up in the air and left. He was full of fairy spirit and cold and disdained to say another word to them. Yan Xiangluo looked at the token in her hand, which had the 3 words Qingyuan sect written on it, with light flashing in her eyes. It's just that this man walked too fast, and she wanted to try to see if she could hear what he was thinking. The clan members of the selected young the other side of the crowd were extremely excited when they saw that they had obtained the tokens. It was a symbol of strength for someone in the family to go to the Qingyuan sect to practice. Those who failed were so envious that they wanted to grab the token. This will indeed happen, so anyone who gets the token will be escorted to Qingyuan sect by the most powerful person in the family. Of course, these families did not include the Yu family. The Yu family stared at Ruan Xiangluo with gloomy eyes. They went in with more than a dozen children, but none of them were left. On the contrary, the abandoned Yuan Xiangluo was chosen. It was a slap in the face. The girls of the Yan family who forced Yan Xiangluo off the cliff were extremely regretful. If they had killed her directly, what happened today would not have happened, but no one dared to say anything. The regent has arrived. The excited crowd immediately fell silent with this sound. Zhizhe Kong, the regent of Tianshan Kingdom, has only been crowned this year, but he has already been in charge of the government for 3 years. Yan Xiangluo raised her eyes and saw that the main reason why the original owner was in such a bad situation was that she was Zhizhe Kong's fiancée. 3 years ago, Emperor Tianshan wanted to give his youngest brother, who was still 2 years away from being crowned, and who was so disgusted that he tried to kill him several times but failed to do so. The sick Xianxia, who was far away in the fiefdom of Lijiang, was given a great gift by King Li, who is now the regent Zhizhu. To get married, the candidate fell on Ruan Xiangluo, who was only 10 years old. Her parents were missing, and she was not welcomed by her family. The world is unpredictable. Not long after the marriage was granted, the prince rebelled and poisoned the emperor. The second prince appeared in a timely manner and killed the prince. At this time, the sick and bedridden King Li showed up dragging his sick body with his graceful appearance. With lightning speed, he destroyed the prince's power and took control of the military power of the imperial city, leaving the second prince's work in vain. The emperor was poisoned and fell into a coma. At the request of hundreds of officials, Li Wang Zhizhe Kong served as regent and took control of the government. Since then, Zhizhe Kong has become the man that the women in Tianshan Imperial City want to marry, while Yuan Xiangluo has become a thorn in their side. With this seemingly successful marriage contract, the original owner didn't get any benefit from it, and it even cost him his life. As the crowd made way, a man wearing a snow-white brocade robe embroidered with silver dark patterns came slowly. A peerless face came into view, with a temperament as rich as jade, as elegant as a fairy, with clear eyes that seemed to be able to penetrate the void, and the world-famous dignity exuding from his bones made everyone around him lose their sense of existence. Yan Xiangluo thought to herself, no wonder she can make those girls crazy and even kill her. Such a beautiful skin does have the capital. She didn't look at the jealous cry in the heart of the young man next to her. Why was he not as good looking as Zhizhe Hong, and why was his cultivation talent not as good as Zhizhe Hong's? Yan Xiangluo calmed down and glanced at Zhizhe Hong before retracting her gaze. No matter how good looking he was, it was poison to her. She stared at her toes, but actually something big was brewing in her heart. Meet the regent. After Zhizhe Hong stood in front of the 10 of them, the crowd knelt down with cheers. Including Yan Xiangluo and the other 9 of the 10, only Yan Xiangluo stood without kneeling down. Zhizhe Hong's eyes naturally fell on her with her head lowered. This was not what Yan Xiangluo did on purpose. It was because she had not adapted to this kind of society where there was a distinction between superiority and inferiority. Now kneeling down seemed a bit intentional. Therefore, she simply stopped kneeling and did not want to kneel down. The original owner was because of him. Even his life is gone. Hence the eyes that fell on her hard and uncomfortable. She secretly wanted to hear Jizhong's thoughts, but she found that she couldn't hear anything. Thinking of Jizhong's cultivation level, she understood. It seems that this golden finger has limitations. She can only hear the voices of people who are similar to her cultivation level. She can't hear the voices of people who are too different. This is a strong person. Strength of self-protection. Even so, she was not disappointed, which was good for her. Jizhong looked at her for a long time before he said, "Ping Shen." The voice was unexpectedly cold, but it sounded very nice. Everyone cheered. Jizhong did not blame Yan Xiangluo for not kneeling. He raised his hand and a man carrying a tray came over and stood in front of Yan Xiangluo. There is no other reason, just because Yan Xiangluo was the first of the 10 people to approach Jizhong, so we started with her. This is a reward for the 10 of you. Each of you will receive 1,000 high-grade spiritual stones. When you arrive at the Qingyun sect, you will work hard to practice and bring glory to the family and the Tianshan kingdom. Jizhong said a scene. There were only 10 kinkan bags on the tray, obviously one for each person. Yan Xiangluo picked up a kinkan bag without ceremony, which the original owner had paid for with his life. With a sweep of his spiritual consciousness, he knew the number of things inside. It was indeed 1,000 high-grade spiritual stones. Divine consciousness is so convenient. You don't have to count things one by one. You can just scan them to know the number. This world is indeed magical. It seems that this life will no longer be boring. The crowd looked at the kinkan bags in their hands with envy. They contained 1,000 high-grade spiritual stones, which would allow them to practice in luxury for 3 years. After giving out the rewards and finishing talking about the situation, Jizhong was about to turn around and leave. Yan Xiangluo suddenly spoke, "Prince Regent, please stay." Jizhong stopped and turned to look at her. "What's the matter?" "I want to break off the engagement." Although Yan Xiangluo was a little timid under Jizhong's sharp gaze, she had to break off the engagement for the sake of freedom and safety. "Beginning the engagement? What?" Jizhong narrowed his eyes. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. What to witness. Yan Xiangluo said her name directly. The girls in the crowd who had harmed her all screamed in surprise after hearing her words. Yan Xiangluo came out alive, so why did she break off the engagement? Does she know what she was doing? Did they hear it correctly? When the engagement was cancelled, it was Jizhong's marriage that all the girls wanted to marry. Even the other 9 people standing next to Yan Xiangluo were surprised. After all, many of them had seen what happened to Yan Xiangluo in the secret realm, and some of them had heard about it. I did not expect that the first thing of Xianxia came out was to retreat Jizhong's marriage. Yan Xiangluo even heard the gloating voice of the young man next to her, "Jizhong, you are here today too. Your engagement was broken off by a loser, haha." Yu Xiangluo was speechless. "Young man, are you so secretly proud of yourself? If you have the guts to say it." Jizhong's eyes paused. He really didn't expect that the embarrassed girl in front of him, who couldn't see her true appearance, was actually the one named Xiangluo who was his fiancé. No wonder she didn't kneel down before. It turned out to be because she was angry with herself. "Although I have never paid attention to this little fiancé, she is too famous, and I know some things about her. She is a useless person who cannot condense yuanying. However, she is now at the 3rd level of yuan level, and she has obviously already the nascent soul has been condensed. Although this cultivation level is still equivalent to useless material in his eyes, At least this girl is not as bad as they said. Why? Ji Hong spoke with very few words. Save your life. Yan Xiangluo's answer was also very concise. Ji Hong's eyes flashed. How do you say that? What is the relationship between saving one's life and breaking off the engagement with him? The Prince Regent will know when he looks at this. As soon as Yan Xiangluo thought about it, the audiovisual stone appeared in her hand. After inputting spiritual power, the image in the audiovisual stone was displayed in the void. Not only Ji Hong, but also the crowd could see it clearly. A group of gorgeously dressed girls surrounded a girl in a red dress, including 3 girls from the Yu family. The girl was deprived of her life-saving card and forced to stand on the edge of the cliff. She was scolded by the group of girls who looked like ladies, all because she was not worthy of Ji Hong. The scolding was extremely unpleasant. Why is she a lazy toad who wants to eat swan meat? Why is she a good-for-nothing without self-awareness? Why would she have committed suicide if it had been them? How could she have the face to live in this world? In the end, she was knocked off the cliff by a girl with spiritual power. All the girls in the crowd in the image turned pale. They never thought that Yan Xiangluo could come out alive, let alone that she still had this hand. Not to mention anything else, since this image appeared, their reputations have been ruined. Let alone coveting Ji Hong, there is no big family there that would marry someone with such bad behavior and vicious behavior as them. Yu Xiangluo's hand was simply more cruel than killing them. Ji Hong was surprised. He really didn't know that because of his fiancée's name, Yan Xiangluo was treated like this, and she almost died. He knew under the cliff in the secret realm that she could come back alive after falling. For a person with her level of cultivation, it was simply a miracle. She was only standing here because the last 10 people would be teleported out. Otherwise, everyone would think he died inside and the secret realm was closed. In fact, this was indeed the result. That's why she is so embarrassed compared to others. Because of this, she resented the disaster he had brought to her, so she refused to kneel down and worship. From this incident, we can also see what kind of life she has lived since she was given the marriage. Ji Hong felt a little guilty, and it had nothing to do with feelings. The girls involved in the video are all from the Tianxun family, and they have never been so embarrassed. If possible, he would want to strangle his own daughter to death. Especially the girl who was among the 9 people, she felt like she had a light on her back, and she wished she could crawl into a hole. She was extremely desperate. She didn't need to think about it. The token she had worked so hard to get into the Qingyun sect would be taken away by her family when she returned home. No matter who it was given to, it wouldn't be hers anyway. Originally, she thought that Yan Xiangluo was dead. She was the most talented girl in the imperial city, so she must be the best choice for the regent. Now it seems that there is no place for her in the imperial city for any regent. It would be false to say that I don't regret it at this time, but regretting it is useless. Ji Hong turned to look at the crowd and said, I didn't know that the tutors of major families are so good. This sentence almost determined the fate of those girls. Several girls couldn't bear the result and fainted. For a while, the scene was a bit chaotic. The eyes of those families fell on Yan Xiangluo. There was no filth behind that family, but this was the first time that it was brought to light. Yu Xiang ruined the reputation of the girls in their family, which was equivalent to ruining the reputation of their family. She broke off the marriage to the regent, so she thought she could save her life. Ji Hong obviously realized this. Are you sure you can save your life by breaking off the engagement? Those who survive a catastrophe will be blessed later. If they have the ability, they will come. Yan Xiangluo did not flinch at all. The marriage must be cancelled. If the engagement with him was useful, the original owner would not die a tragic death. Ji Hong's eyes narrowed and he looked at the girl who was only as high as his chest. She was strong and stubborn, and lived a very transparent life. Then as you wish, from today on, the engagement between you and me is cancelled, and it has nothing to do with the marriage between man and woman. Ji Zhong said to terminate the engagement. The marriage was originally given by the emperor to humiliate him, and there would be no results in the first place. Just retreat. It is better for the girl to propose it herself than for him to propose it. Yan Xianglue breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that Jiju was about to leave, she added, "Your Majesty, considering the humiliation I have endured in the name of your fiancé, can you please be a witness?" Ji Zhong felt a little funny. "You have said this, can I refuse? This little girl is quite interesting and has a lot of thoughtfulness." "Witness what?" Yan Xianglue said in the direction of the Yu family, "Let's make a break with the Yu family." Ji Zhong's eyes flashed with appreciation. The little girl can really seize opportunities. She has a very lovable temperament and is decisive and not procrastinating. "Old General, please move." Ji Zhong turned around and said in the direction of the family. The old General Yu Jiming glanced at Yu Xianglue. This girl was indeed as annoying as her mother. The Yu family was in disgrace because of them. But the regent has spoken. Even though Ji Zhong is only as young as a crown prince, his cultivation level is not low. No one knows his exact cultivation level yet. Anyway, no one can benefit from him. He had to bite the bullet and walked over. Everyone else was looking here, wondering what Yan Xianglue was going to do. "I have met the regent." Yu Jiming came over and saluted. Ji Judian nodded and signaled to Yu Xianglue, "I've called you. You can stop." End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Escape immediately. Old General Yu, my father was kicked out of the Yu family 13 years ago, right? Yu Xianglue didn't call the head of the Yu family grandpa, and he didn't want to. The original owner's father was kicked out of the house by the head of Yu's family in order to be with her mother. In the past 13 years, she has never stepped into the concubine's house, and she will never go there in the future. While talking, Yu Xianglue tried to see if she could hear Yu Jiming's thoughts. Unfortunately, she couldn't. This proved her previous thought. There were too many people with higher cultivation levels than her, and she couldn't hear them. Voice. Looks like I still have to work hard to improve my cultivation. Yu Jiming took a deep breath and said, "Yes, that wicked son rebelled against his parents for a woman. There are no descendants like him in my family. It's good. I finally know why my father left my family." Yan Xianglue raised the corners of her lips mockingly. No one present could hear the unspecified reason. She was saying that the Yu family was a ruthless and unjust family, so her father wanted to leave. Yu Jiming wanted to reprimand her, but due to Ji Zhong's presence and the fact that his granddaughter had scolded her and forced her to be knocked off the cliff, he did not dare to be too presumptuous. The Yu family could no longer afford to lose face. "Today I asked the regent to be a witness. I, Nuan Xianglue, will repay my father's debt to my family for raising children. General Yu, do you think this King Yuan Sek's entrance order is enough?" Yuan Xianglue raised the King Yuan Sek's token in her hand. Asked. Lao General Yun's eyes narrowed. She actually wanted to use this token to completely cut off the relationship between his father and the Yu family. Her parents had been missing for 3 years, could they still come back? As for Ruan Xianglue, who was a 5-spirited loser, he didn't take her seriously at all. She was so exhausted that she wouldn't achieve much in her life. In his eyes, this token is more attractive. Old General Yu looked at Ji Zhong. Although it was a bit despicable to break off the relationship with his son just for the sake of the King Yuan Sek token, this son had already been kicked out of the house by him, which was another matter. Not to mention the temptation of the token. Too much force. He was not worried about anything else, except that Xuanhuan would interfere in the matter. After all, when the emperor granted the marriage, the family would have offended Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan glanced at the old general. The old general had a great role in protecting Tianshan country, but his eyesight was really not that good. I am just here to bear witness and don't care about anything else. Yu Jiming breathed a sigh of relief and immediately said, "That's enough." "Okay, then please make an oath, old General Yu. From today on, Yu Chenji's lineage will have nothing to do with your Yu family. From now on, no one in the Yu family will be related by blood. Who will break it? Whoever swears is going to lose his soul," Yan Xiangluo said in a crisp tone. She wanted to deny the concubine's family the right to interfere with her in anything. The freedom and healthy life she finally gained must be carried out according to her own wishes. Yu Jiming's eyes narrowed and he looked at the little girl with a face and body covered in blood in front of him. This kind of temperament reminded him of his elegant second son. The two were exactly the same, and they were worthy of being father and daughter. It made him feel depressed for no reason. He didn't even want an excellent son, let alone a useless granddaughter. He made the oath without hesitation, and the oath came true. Yu Xiang threw the token to Yu Jiming neatly, turned to Xuanhuan and said, "Today the regent helped me once, and all previous grievances have been wiped out. The implication is that you can rest assured that I will not come to you for any reason again." After finishing speaking, he turned around and left without any hesitation. Xuanhuan didn't expect the little girl to be so free and easy, and to do what she said. She really didn't miss him at all. This was the first time in his life that he was so disliked by a girl. Yan Xiangluo left quickly through the path that the crowd had made for Xuanhuan, ignoring the various looks from those people. What she did today has offended many big families. If she wants to save her life, she must leave Tianshan Imperial City quickly to avoid their pursuit. She quickly returned to her home in the east of the city based on her memory. The courtyard was not big, but it was very warm and comfortable. It was all decorated by the original owner's parents. She has a storage ring, which has a larger capacity than the Kinkan bag. It was a 5th birthday gift from the original owner's parents. The valuable things are in the natal ring given by her father and mother. She simply puts her daily necessities, her clothing, bedding, kitchen utensils, etc. All those who can take them away will be taken away. I washed my face and changed into boy's clothes. My hair stood up and was tied with a hairpin, just like a young boy. In the mirror is a face that is almost exactly the same as her previous life. The black grape eyes are as clear and dazzling as the clear springs in the mountains, as if there are bright stars scattered from them. The plump and fair forehead was as moist as jade. The cherry red lips under her straight nose are like brightly opened flower buds. She is no longer surprised. After all, she has all the memories of the original owner and knows what the original owner looks like. However, this face is too ostentatious, and her complexion is as healthy and rosy as she has never had in her previous life. She painted her face darker and yellower, and the milk-white boy looked like a farm boy. The appearance was completely different. Yan Xiangluo finally experienced firsthand the feeling of covering up all ugliness with one white face. No matter how good-looking you are, you can't stand up to being dark. She locked the door and looked back at the small courtyard. This was the home where the original owner had lived for 13 years. It contained the happiest memories of her and her parents. It was as real as if she had lived and grown up here. She would never know in the future. "Will you come back again?" Putting aside all thoughts, he quickly ran towards the nearest East City gate. It was important to escape for his life now. She successfully left the East City gate. At this time, the families had not finished their work and could not take care of her. She took a deep breath and rushed out of the city. "I used one low-grade spiritual stone to rent a flying eagle, and 2 medium-grade spiritual stones as a deposit, which will be returned to her when she returns the flying eagle at the destination. In fact, carriages and horses are much cheaper, but if she wants to leave Tianshan Imperial City as quickly as possible and avoid the pursuit of those families, she can only hire Flying Eagle. After riding the Flying Eagle, Tianshan Imperial City was soon left far behind, until it was out of sight. At the regent's palace, the attendant, Feng Zhen, reported, "Master, Yan Xiangluo dressed up as a boy and rented a Flying Eagle from the East City Gate and left." Ji Zhozhong stared at him for a moment. Sure enough, he was cunning enough and knew how to escape immediately. He waved his hand and said, "Just leave, there is no need to pay any more attention to him." He sent Chang Feng there just because he felt guilty for everything the marriage contract had brought to her in the past 3 years and wanted to protect her life. Since the girl had her own ideas and knew how to protect herself, he didn't worry too much. At this time, Yan Xiangluo was sitting on the Flying Eagle. Although he was a little wilted by the sun, he was in a good mood. Using the Qingyun sex entry token to completely end the relationship with the Yu family was just one of the reasons. The main reason was that she didn't want to go to the Qingyun sect. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. He is a good boy. Qingyun sect is famous for its various types of cultivation techniques. She practices ancient techniques, so going to Qingyun sect will not be of much help to her. In her previous life, because she was too weak, the only thing she learned was medicine. Before she could read, she already knew a lot of medicinal herbs. After she became literate, she began to study medicine. So she had no plans to go to Qingyun sect from the beginning. Instead, she wanted to go to Xianhuan sect, which is famous for alchemy, and learn the art of alchemy. This was what she was most interested in after coming here. At this time, not only Qingyun sect was recruiting disciples, but all major sects were recruiting disciples. Except for the large sects in the imperial cities of several major empires who will specially send people to select them, other people who want to study in sects must go to the location of each sect to take the assessment. This can also be regarded as a symbol of the good relations between the major sects and the great empire. The selection for Xianhuan sect has also begun, and the selection time will be half a month later. Yang Xiang has made the final decision. It takes about 8 days to get there by Flying Eagle. There are still 2 days left to register. It is in time. You can also inquire about the details of the assessment and make some preparations. After 8 days of wind and sun, Yan Xiangluo finally arrived at Xianhuan town at the foot of Xianhuan Sect Mountain. Although the Flying Eagle was fast, it was really hard to travel for a long time. When I came to Xianhuan town, my breathing felt much easier. Not to mention the spiritual energy on the mountain, even the spiritual energy in Xianhuan town is much richer than other places. It is indeed a good place to practice. Yan Xiangluo found a horse and carriage shop in Xianhuan town where she rented Feiying. She handed Feiying back the deposit and inquired about the place where Xianhuan sect registered. The guy enthusiastically showed her the way, hoping to make a good friend of a future disciple of the Xianhuan section. After all, as long as you don't break through to the king level, you have to rely on their flying eagles to travel. Even if they fail the exam, they have nothing to lose. The other party will still go back, right? If they have a better attitude, the other party will come to rent the flying eagle from him. Yan Xiangluo first went to the registration place. This was the office set up by the Xianhuan section. It was originally responsible for delivering news and making it easier for the people of the Xianhuan sect to come down the mountain. At this time, it was used for registration. Another important role is to sell elixirs. After all, Xianhuan sect is famous for refining elixirs, so the refined elixirs must be sold. Otherwise, how can such a large Xianhuan sect maintain its life? Yan Xiangluo took out her identity card and signed up. Then she breathed a sigh of relief and started walking around Xianhuan town. She wanted to inquire about the previous examination requirements of Xianhuan sect so that she would be prepared. The day after tomorrow is the assessment day, and she has to stay in Xianhuan town for 2 days to find a place to live first. At this time, the people who came to take the Xianhuan sex assessment had already arrived. She checked all the inns and found that they were all full, but none of them had any vacancies. This is how to do? Yan Xiangluo felt a little worried. She couldn't live on the street for 2 days, could she? The last inn I inquired about was already the worst in Xianhuan town. Not to mention the rooms, there was no room in Datongpu. The shopkeeper came out and saw her and asked the clerk, only to find out that she could not find a place to live. "Young master, are you here to take the exam of Xianhuan sect?" asked the shopkeeper. Yan Xiangluo nodded, "Exactly, we just arrived today and there is no place to stay." The shopkeeper's eyes lit up. He not only opened an inn, but also a medicine shop. A large number of medicines just arrived today. They need to be picked and dried. There are not enough manpower. But the medicines must be picked tomorrow, otherwise a lot of them will spoil. Then just lose it. But this work must be done by knowledgeable people. Those who come to take the exam of Xianhuan sect must have some foundation, and knowledge of medicinal materials should be no problem. "Young master, can you tell the difference between medicinal materials?" the shopkeeper still asked first. "Yes, I have learned to identify medicinal materials since I was a child. I know most of them. If you tell me the ones you don't know, I can remember them." Yu Xiangluo knew that the shopkeeper would not ask her this for no reason. Yan Xiangluo wanted to hear what the shopkeeper had to say, but the shopkeeper's cultivation level was higher than hers, at least above the spiritual level, because the young man next to her among the 10 people before had a cultivation level of UN level 9. She could heard. Since you can't hear other people's voices, just act according to circumstances. Being born in a big family in her previous life, she has learned to observe people's emotions since she was a child. After all, not everyone likes a sick man like a gold-eating beast. The shopkeeper twirled his beard and said, "I also have a medicinal shop. I bought a lot of medicinal materials today and need manpower to sort them. If the young master is willing, I can provide him with accommodation and 3 meals for free for these 2 days. How about it?" The shopkeeper understands that although the young master in front of him is wearing very ordinary clothes, as long as he joins the Xianhuan sect, he will be the future alchemist. He cannot offend him, and it is good to form a good relationship. Yan Xiangluo's eyes lit up. "That's great, thank you so much, shopkeeper." When the shopkeeper saw this, he also smiled. He is a polite child. Such a child will be successful in the future and will not make mistakes. Now it is equivalent to making friends in advance. "Young master, come with me," the shopkeeper said with a smile. Yan Xiangluo immediately followed the shopkeeper to the back. Behind is the accommodation area of the inn. The shopkeeper led her around the accommodation area towards a courtyard. When she entered the courtyard, she saw 3 people picking medicinal herbs, and the packages of medicinal herbs were placed in half of the courtyard. "There is help," the shopkeeper said with a smile. The 3 of them looked up and saw a boy of 12 or 13 years old, and asked in unison, "Can he do it?" The shopkeeper turned to look at Yan Xiangluo. "What do you think, young master?" Yan Xiangluo walked over, looked at the medicinal materials they picked out and said, "This is Xuanyang grass. It grows in a sunny and humid place. It is a herb that treats insufficient yang qi. This is Atractylodes. It nourishes the spleen and stomach and removes dampness in Hezhong. This is Snow Lotus, this is Coptides quinata, this is Magnolia officinalis, this is Sistent deserticola." "That's it," the shopkeeper interrupted her with a smile. Although the medicinal materials here are not only those she has learned about, but also some medicinal materials she has never heard of, the original owner also knows a lot about the medicinal materials here. The 3 of them saw that she had a lot of precious medicinal herbs, and they all recognized her, and they also recognized her. Although picking medicinal herbs is not a complicated task, it is very important. If other medicinal herbs are mixed in and sold, big trouble will happen. Just like that, Xianxia stayed and started working. Although she also studied medicine in her previous life, she had never done such physical work, so she worked quite energetically. In the eyes of the shopkeeper, this child was diligent, not lazy, and was a good child. Throughout the whole day, the four of us, including the shopkeeper, did not rest except for meals. The results were gratifying. The medicinal materials were picked out at a visible speed, with only 1/3 left. It will take less than a day to pick them all tomorrow. The shopkeeper finally felt relieved and did not have to worry about too much damage to the medicinal materials. During dinner, the three of them and the shopkeeper all praised Xianxia for being unambiguous and not lazy at work despite her young age. They also said that she would definitely be admitted to the Xuanhuan sect. Xianxia could hear the polite words and wouldn't take them seriously. Instead, she took the opportunity to ask them about the Xuanhuan sect's assessment rules. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 8. Chapter 8 A Chance. Just then I learned that the Xuanhuan sect's previous assessments were divided into two parts, one of which was knowledge of herbs, and there was no problem with Xianxia in this step. But another alchemy task put her in trouble. She did know how to make pills in her previous life, but pills and elixirs are two different things. Although she often read fantasy novels in the past, she didn't know how to make elixirs. If you don't know how to make elixirs, the ones left behind may not be very big, and you can only be a handyman disciple who grows medicinal materials and does some chores. She came to Xuanhuan sect because she wanted to learn alchemy, but she didn't want to be a handyman disciple. What should she do? So much so that she couldn't sleep well at night. She got up early to work the next day, but she couldn't sleep. When the shopkeepers and others came, they saw that she had picked out a lot of medicinal materials, and they were even more satisfied with her. She is really a diligent boy. Who knew she started working so early because she was too worried to sleep? All the medicinal materials were selected in one morning. The shopkeeper was very generous and did not let her do any other work. Dinner and accommodation remained the same. Last night and all morning, she couldn't figure out a way, so she wanted to try to see if she could make the elixir before the alchemy test. But making alchemy requires an alchemy furnace, medicinal materials, and prescriptions, and she has none of them. After lunch, Xianxia told the shopkeeper that she wanted to buy an alchemy furnace. The shopkeeper said enthusiastically, "Young master, go to the shop and take a look. If you like the alchemy furnace, I will give you the lowest price." The shopkeeper has actually had a very good impression of Xianxia in the past 2 days. Seeing that she came to take the assessment at such a young age, he felt even more pity for her. Xianxia didn't have to aim too high. She chose a medium alchemy furnace and spent 10 yuan of low-grade spiritual stones. This was a friendly price, but it was really not cheap. It's not that she doesn't want to buy a low-grade alchemy furnace. The shopkeeper said that the low-grade alchemy furnace can't control the heat well and the alchemy furnace will break down easily when the alchemy furnace is exploded. Although she has no shortage of spiritual stones for the time being, as the original owner's parents left them for her as well as the rewards given by the royal family selected by the Xuanhuan sect, she will have to buy all the medicinal materials for alchemy in the future. There are so many spiritual stones that she doesn't need to spend them. Besides, spiritual stones can not only be used as money, but are also the main cultivation resources. The spiritual energy in them can be directly absorbed for cultivation. If you buy 2 low-level alchemy furnaces, they are equivalent to the price of 1 medium-level alchemy furnace. It is better to buy a stronger one in one step. Now she does not expect to have a precious alchemy furnace like in fantasy novels, as long as she can make elixirs without going bad. Who can say for sure in the future? Maybe I will have a chance to get a treasure quilt pill furnace. Seeing that the medicine shop also sold some books on the needs of alchemists, her eyes lit up. She browsed for a while and selected a most basic alchemy book. The key is that there are no good books, otherwise these people would be thousands of miles away. Why do you come all the way to Xuanhuan sect to study? She chose another encyclopedia of medicinal herbs. She wanted to use it to see if there were any herbs she didn't know. She had to be familiar with them all. Who knew which one to take the test on? She didn't expect to fall in the eyes of the alchemy master of the Xuanhuan sect, as long as she could get into the exam and work as a handyman to give her a chance to learn. The alchemy book contains 3 of the most commonly used elementary elixir recipes, as well as refining methods, which is already very good for her who knows nothing about them. This recipe should be something an alchemist knows, otherwise it cannot be sold just like this. She asked for 3 copies of each of the medicinal materials needed for the 3 primary elixirs. Tomorrow was the test time. She immediately returned to the house where she lived, opened the book and read, preparing to try to refine the elixir herself. It doesn't matter if there is no one to guide her. In her last life, she just read books and practiced by herself. She developed good medical skills at a young age. The pills she made are also the most effective among her family members. Okay. She didn't believe that it wouldn't work now. Half an hour later, she finished reading the Baiko book. She was glad in her heart. Fortunately, she bought this book to read. Otherwise, she would have been in doubt. There were many herbs here that she had never seen in her previous life, and the original owner didn't know about them. After all, the original owner didn't know either. Learn to make alchemy. Fortunately, even though he was reborn, his super memory is still there, and he has almost a photographic memory. Then she picked up the alchemy book and started reading it. Soon, she understood the book and the method of alchemy, but she didn't know how it would be in practice. There are 3 steps in making alchemy. The first step is to refine the medicinal materials, the second step is to purify the medicinal liquid, the third step is to condense the elixir. It seems very simple, but she knows that every step is not that easy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people who wouldn't achieve much throughout their lives. Took out the ingredients for the primary blood replenishing pill, placed them in 3 parts, and took out the pill furnace. She decided to try to use her own fire power to make the pill first. Therefore, she did not buy the fire stone for making the pill. She thinks her fire power makes it easier to control fire. Although there are only 3 steps in making alchemy, each step is related to the temperature of the fire, so controlling the fire is very important. With her spiritual power moving, a small flame fell under the alchemy furnace. She observed the heat of the alchemy furnace, and then tried to throw in a medicinal plant. The primary blood tonifying elixir has only 13 medicinal materials, which is the smallest number of medicinal materials among the primary elixir recipes. It is also the elixir that beginners will refine. After the first medicinal plant was thrown in, it was quickly melted by the alchemy furnace. Fortunately, she had experience in making pills in her previous life, so she did not make the medicinal herbs into paste. She hurriedly threw in the second medicinal herb and stared at the alchemy furnace with great nervousness. She was mainly distracted by using her spiritual power to control the fire. Her multitasking showed how focused she was. After throwing in all 13 medicinal herbs, she looked at the turbid liquid in the alchemy furnace. She knew that the first step was successful, and now she had to proceed to the second step, purification. Purification is to remove the impurities from the medicinal solution, leaving only the medicinal part. This level is actually similar to how she made pills before, only more precise. After all, purification directly determines the color of the pill you refine. How to determine the quality of an elixir? The first thing to look at is the color, then the roundness, and then how much medicinal properties are retained. Although this book did not mention it, based on her previous experience of reading fantasy novels, High-quality elixirs will also have elixir patterns, and golden elixir patterns are a symbol of perfect quality elixirs. Now it seems that the fantasy novels she used to read out of boredom were not in vain, and now they are put to use. At least making alchemy for the first time does not feel so strange to her. However, she will not aim too high and just pray that she can refine the elixir before the alchemy test. Even outer disciples are better than handymen, at least they have the opportunity to learn. In fact, she will stay even if she is a handyman. Most sects recruit disciples every 3 years, and the maximum age is 15. She is 13 this year, which is already considered older among the new disciples. The next time she recruits disciples she was already 16 years old, too old, so she only had this chance. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 9. Chapter 9 Taking the Assessment. Xianxia concentrated on purifying, and the liquid became clear at a speed visible to the naked eye. When no impurities were visible in the liquid, Xianxia began to condense the elixir. Condensing the pill is the last step. Many people fail at this step, so she is very careful. The liquid medicine begins to thicken little by little. This time is very critical. If it is not done properly, it will burn the elixir and it will be useless. Seeing the elixir become rounded in the alchemy furnace, Xianxia's heart beat loudly. Could it be that she had a good talent in alchemy and could make the elixir in the first time? At this moment, the flame under the alchemy furnace suddenly went out, and the elixir in the furnace instantly shattered. Xianxia was stunned. She estimated many possibilities of failure, but she did not expect that there would be a problem with the duration of the flame. Her spiritual power was no longer enough to support the emergence of the fire power of the flame. Therefore, at the last moment of making the elixir, the flame went out, causing the alchemy to fail. It is a pity that Xianxia is in trouble. This shows that her alchemy talent is still good. If the flames had not been unable to hold up, she would have succeeded in making alchemy for the first time. Pour out the dregs of medicine in the alchemy furnace and put away the remaining 2 medicinal materials. She was not discouraged. She sat cross-legged and began to practice to restore the consumed spiritual power. Since the spiritual power is insufficient, it is better to cultivate. As long as the cultivation level is improved, the spiritual power to refine the primary elixir should be enough. In other words, she only needs to advance to 1 level before taking the alchemy test. At the royal training ground of the Tianshan Empire, she practiced for 3 days after her promotion. Not only did she stabilize her 3rd level UN level cultivation, she also reached the peak of the 3rd level UN level. She was only 1 chance away from being promoted to the 4th level. Xuanhuan town's aura is also very rich and suitable for cultivation. During this practice, she didn't even eat dinner. She continued practicing until the early morning of the next day. The waiter from the inn came to call her. If she didn't leave, it would be too late for the assessment, so she quit the practice. Wash off the dark spots on your face and put on girls' clothes. The original owner likes red dresses, and she also likes them, but the color is too ostentatious, but there are no dresses of other colors in her gift ring. The original owner's mother-in-law I made her a dress that she can wear until she is 16, all in red. She could only choose a red dress with the most common style to change into. She wore a double bun and didn't wear any accessories, just tied with a red ribbon. When she walked out of the house, the innkeeper was stunned when he saw the beautiful fairy-like girl and pointed at her. You. No words came out for a long time. Xianxia smiled and said, "For convenience, I dress up as a boy. Today's assessment is not allowed to dress up like a boy." The innkeeper's face turned red. The sallow-faced boy suddenly turned into a beautiful girl like a fairy. He was embarrassed to look at it. Yan Xiangluo heard him repeatedly saying in her heart, "She is so pretty, this little girl is so good looking, even prettier than those immortal alchemists from the Xuanhuan sect." Yan Xiangluo held back her smile, "This guy is really cute." The clerk quickly handed her the oil paper bag in his hand. "You didn't eat last night, so I didn't bother you since I was practicing. This is the breakfast the shopkeeper ordered to prepare for you. You can only eat it on the way." Yan Xiangluo was not polite. She really didn't have time to buy breakfast. She took it and said with a smile, "Thank you, brother, and thank the shopkeeper for me. I will come to see you when I have the opportunity in the future." Although she earned it through hard work, the shopkeeper is also a kind person. If possible, she is still willing to make this good relationship. The innkeeper scratched his head and said, "The shopkeeper is going to the medicine shop. I will convey my gratitude to you." "Excuse me, brother, I'm leaving." Yan Xiangluo waved and ran away with the oil paper bag. It was really too late if she didn't leave. When she arrived at the Xuanhuan sect office, almost all the people taking the assessment were there, and there were also some who were in a hurry like her. Fortunately, they were in time, otherwise she would have regretted it to death. They are all a group of teenagers and girls, and there are many people of her age. After all, it is not possible to pass the exam in one go. Many people have come here for the second time. However, most of them were around 10 years old, and they were a little embarrassed looking at those little carrot-headed women. "I may not be as good as that little carrot head. Regardless of her young age, I should be able to refine elixirs. The assessment rules have changed this year. From now on, you have already started the assessment. From here, follow the signs and climb to the mountain gate within an hour. No help is allowed during this period, and no pills are allowed. It is illegal and outdated. Those who are less than 100 will be eliminated. This is the first level of assessment, the beginning." Yan Xiangluo stood on tiptoe and looked in the direction of the sound. He saw a middle-aged man wearing a blue brocade robe. There was a pattern embroidered on the robe, which should be the totem of the Xuanhuan sect. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone ran in the same direction. Yan Xiangluo was stunned for a moment, and then walked in that direction. 1 hour, converted into the time in the previous life, was 2 hours. This mountain is not very high, and he still has cultivation. Is it still impossible to climb it? However, since this is the first level of assessment, there must be a reason. She does not dare to look down upon it, but she will not join the crowd. Anyway, the assessment is to achieve it within the time limit, and she does not want to be the first to compete for the first place. A young man in a gorgeous brocade robe ran forward and glanced at her. When he saw her appearance, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. He stopped and said with a somewhat proud expression, "Hey, what's your name?" Yan Xiangluo glanced at him inexplicably. He was a young man about the same age as her. He looked quite handsome. She ignored him and continued to walk forward. Seeing that Yan Xiangluo ignored him, the young man became a little annoyed and chased after him. "You are pretty good looking. Follow me. I will protect you from now on." Yu Xiangluo is speechless. Whose proud and spoiled child is this? How old is he? Is he here to learn alchemy or to attract beautiful women? Still indifferent and continue to move forward. The young man's face darkened and he said in an unhappy tone, "I am a third-grade alchemist, so I must be an inner disciple. Follow me, and you will benefit from it in the future." Yan Xiangluo was a little surprised. He was actually a third-grade alchemy master. He couldn't even refine elementary elixirs. Seeing the envy in her eyes, the young man was very proud. "I have already checked. I am the only third-level alchemist who participated in the assessment this time. If you miss this opportunity, I will not give you another chance. The implication is that I must be the first person in this assessment. I am a stable inner disciple. If you are sensible, you should agree quickly. Yan Xianglego shook her head. She saw that it was the young master in the big family who was used to being praised. She didn't like the tone of this charity, and she had never thought of relying on anyone. I suddenly wanted to hear his voice and see what this young man was thinking. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. The Son of Luck. I heard him muttering in his heart, I have been reborn, and I am considered a prophet. I know many things that the world does not know. In this life, I will definitely be shining brightly. It is your blessing to be interested in you, and it is not a bad thing. Yan Xianglego was stunned. There were actually people who were reborn in this world. According to what he meant, he was reborn in person, which was different from someone like her who was reborn in another world. Is he the kind of reborn male protagonist who is the son of fate written in fantasy books? It's a pity that this is not a fantasy book she has read, otherwise she would know the plot and be prepared in advance. Then I heard him say in his heart, I came here 3 years early in my last life, but I didn't know that there would be such a good-looking girl in this test. I never saw her in the sect afterwards. She should have failed the test. I just happened to be able to do it. Received her. Although Yan Xianglego was shocked, she was relieved immediately. Even if he had a prophetic vision of the world and would shine brilliantly in the future, she didn't care. She just had to go her own way. As long as she worked hard enough, she could still go out of her own way. No one in the world can stand alone, she still knows this very well. If you don't leave, you won't necessarily be number one, Yan Xianglego reminded him, pointing to the people in front of him who had already fled away in a swarm. The young man immediately understood what Yan Xianglego meant. He was rejecting him. His face was ugly and he thought to himself, you actually rejected me. You know what you are rejecting. You will regret it in the future. My aunt is a 5th grade alchemist of the Xuanhuan sect and the master of the first peak. Coupled with her own talents, her aunt has asked the sect leader to accept her as a disciple. In this life, she has a high starting point, and he can go sideways to the Xuanhuan section in the future. Even if she begs him, he won't accept her. After offending him in Xuanhuan sect, let's see how she can survive in the future. Looked away at the fragrance, snorted, and ran forward. Several boys and girls following the young man glanced at her, with an expression like, do you know who he is, do you know what you rejected? They looked like a fool. Yan Xianglego naturally heard the young man's voice. He didn't expect that his aunt was actually the master of the first peak of Xuanhuan section. Sure enough, people who are reborn are with benefits. Look, she has a big tree with her back to enjoy the shade, and she has been predetermined to be her. The master's disciple. Yan Xianglego didn't think much about it. Although he offended the young man, his aunt couldn't cover up the sky in Xuanhuan sect with one hand, so she had better avoid their aunt and nephew. Putting aside the reborn boy, I walked up and wondered, what is the test for the Xuanhuan sect? What is the reason for an alchemy sect to test mountaineering? The young man and his men quickly disappeared. A little girl who was about the same speed as her, glanced at her and reminded her, that young man is the direct young master of the Miao family. He is only 14 years old and is already at the 9th level of the spiritual level. His aunt is the first peak of the Xuanhuan section lord. If you offend him, your life will not be easy even if you join the Xuanhuan section. Yan Xianglego glanced at the little girl and said, would you agree to him if it were you? At the same time, listening to her inner voice, the little girl screamed crazily in her heart, what a shameless girl. The little girl choked, rolled her eyes, and walked past her. Yan Xianglego touched her nose. She really just wanted to ask, what did you mean by giving her a glance? She was still scolding her for not knowing what is good and what is good. Is agreeing to the boy's request considered a good thing? Forget it, it seems that the little girl is 2 years younger than her, so don't worry about it. Due to her health in her previous life, she never treated herself as a child. When she came here, she was all alone, so naturally she couldn't be a child. Continued to walk up, and when she walked for a quarter of an hour, she knew what the test was about. There was resistance coming from the stone steps under her feet, and she needed spiritual power to resist this assistance. Is this an assessment of cultivation? She does not have an advantage in this. After all, a child around 10 years old has a higher level of cultivation than her. Her level of cultivation is not the lowest among those who participated in the assessment. However, even so, she will not give up. She walked up slowly and calmly. Fortunately, she practiced all night last night and her spiritual power was saturated at this time. Looking up, the people in front of me had slowed down, but there were also some with good cultivation who were still running up as hard as they could. Xianxia's handsome brows furrowed. The people who came to take part in the assessment had different levels of cultivation. This assessment should not be an assessment of their cultivation strength. After all, it was not a secret when they signed up. Moreover, there is no requirement to admit students according to their rankings. They just say that they need to arrive within the specified time. Then the test is likely to be perseverance. If this is really the case, no matter what level of cultivation you have, you will encounter tests on the way up the mountain. It is not just because you have a high level of cultivation that you can arrive earlier. After thinking about it, she was no longer in a hurry. She output her spiritual power slowly, as long as she could resist the current resistance. She did not pursue speed. At this time, in front of a huge screen at the gate of Xuanhuan sect, people taking the assessment kept appearing. 7 men and 1 woman with extraordinary temperament sat on chairs and looked at the screen. Xuanhuan sect is divided into 7 peaks, with Xuanhuan Peak as the main peak where the sect leader lives. The other 6 peaks are Tianhong Peak, Xingyu Peak, Tianshui Peak, Baikou Peak, Qingzhou Peak, and Qiandu Peak. There is no one who is calm, the master of Tianhong Peak said regretfully. Why not? Look at the little girl in the red dress. She is always walking up at a fast pace, the master of Xingyu Peak said in a leisurely tone. The leader of Tianhong Peak glanced at the little girl in the red dress, that is, Xianxia, whose cultivation level was so low, and said with disgust, "You know how to attract attention at such a young age, and you are so ostentatious. Your character may not be good." That's not necessarily true. Maybe they wear red for good luck, the master of Xingyu Peak sneered. I don't know if he was deliberately going against the master of Tianhong Peak or for what reason. The master of Tianhong Peak rolled his eyes at him and said, "If you like it, just accept it. The prerequisite is that she can pass the intersection. I don't think her cultivation level is high. No 1% could tell that this little girl is 12 or 13 years old at first glance, but her cultivation level is only at the 3rd level of UN level. Such talent cannot be described as good." The master of Baikou Peak was very helpless. This was the case every time the two met. He quickly changed the subject. I haven't seen my uncle here in these years. Why are you interested this year? The person he called his uncle was the master of Qiandu Peak, a middle-aged man wearing a black robe. The change in the assessment rules this year was because of his uncle's words. The master of Thousand Poison Peak looked at the screen intently. Hearing the words of the master of Baikou Peak, he replied directly, "My disciple is among these people." Everyone looked at him in surprise. The 7 peaks, including the sect master, had many apprentices. Only the master of Thousand Poison Peak and their junior uncle, the youngest apprentice of the master, did not have any apprentices. Every time he didn't even come to recruit disciples, saying that his master-disciple relationship hadn't come yet. This time he actually said that his apprentice is here. Who? Are they going to have junior brothers and junior sisters? End of this chapter.